Okay, we're doing the education credit first.
Okay.
Yes, education credit first. And anybody have any questions since I turned that on about EIC from the other day before we move on to that one?
I don't think so.
I think so. Yeah, big money credit. Got to do some practice on it, but it's legally, biologically related. Pop quiz: which filing statuses can we use with EIC?
Joint return.
Head of household.
Head of household, joint, married filing joint.
You just can't use married filing
Correct.
single.
You just
All
can't
of them
use,
but married
when it
filing
boils
single.
down to it,
Yeah.
99% of the time, if there's a question about married filing separate on the return, I would say always go with, if you're not sure, you can't get that credit,
Yep.
right?
No-
That's usually
no
the
credit.
key.
The way I remember it.
Yeah.
It's easier to remember not, but I can use them.
Right, right. That's the biggest thing about EIC. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I covered last night with them. We covered it with you guys. I didn't record it. They kind of read through it because even the biggest thing with the EIC is, like she said, knowing when it qualifies or not and when it's going to calculate.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And even on the competency test, that's the biggest thing is they'll give you a paragraph of good information, but if in that first sentence it says they're not related,
Right.
nothing else matters.
Yep.
You know, what is their EIC? Well, if it says, you know, if it's the girlfriend's kid, girlfriend's whoever, and if it's the
Sorry.
boyfriend's the one that works, it's 0. Okay? So that is usually more of the ones you'll get on that kind of thing. That'll be prevalent throughout the quiz, definitely.
And
Okay.
the final
The final, yes. I
exam
call
on,
yes. Competency, yes.
on the website too?
Yes. It
Okay.
will be, once you finish the quizzes, it will calculate.
Okay.
And I think it's called midterm. I think that's
Okay.
what they title it for the first one. They use the term midterm on it. If you see the word final, I don't think that's the right one. If they've changed the wording to say final one, I'll let you know. But as of the last time I looked, it was titled midterm.
Okay.
So
So do we need to know which forms this EIC requires, like the 8839, Schedule 3?
possibly.
Okay.
Now, do you have to have it memorized? No, because I couldn't tell you. But if it's on that sheet, yes. That's the other thing I do like is when they made that sheet, they put the form numbers, because for the competency exam, they like to throw that out there and say, well, what line is that on, or what form do you use?
Oh, yeah, and it's right here.
Do we, in reality, when we're in this office, have it memorized once
The
we start
form number.
seeing
Oh, good.
50 forms a day? No.
Those forms will populate as we go
Correct.
through it.
Yep.
So we don't
As you're putting in
necessarily have to
information,
choose
yes.
a form.
As you're putting in information, it will qualify.
Okay.
And the only time it ever happens where we have to add a form, it's few and far and in between. It really is. The good thing supposedly about this year's software is we don't have to memorize the numbers. We could literally say, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head that we would in a form, even on a W-2. You could just put income and it would bring up every form that might be possible that you're talking about, and you click what you want. In the past, you had to know like what form it was. So if you were wanting to put in, like today is a 1098, you would have to say 1098T. You just couldn't put in education credit.
Okay.
The software that they've built for us this year is going to be so user-friendly, you can get to the form a couple different ways. So
That's good to see.
that's what we all said. That's what we all said, because we literally had to either type in the word form, or you had to put the W-2 in the right spot in the box for it to populate it. It was a little finicky. So, okay. American Opportunity Credit. So like I told you, there's 2 different ones. There's the American Opportunity we're going to talk about, and there's that Lifetime Learner, right? So the biggest difference is that Lifetime Learner is not used as often, but that's more for a higher education, someone kind of getting more educated, kind of like it sounds, right? American Opportunity, we're giving them an opportunity. They're younger, they're right in college, those first 4 years. Lifetime Learner, they've passed those 4 years. They've used up their other credits on this one, okay? Now, the American Opportunity Credit is based on a maximum of $4,000 of qualifying expenses paid in a tax year for each student. So some people will have more than one student on the trip. They've got kids that are a couple of years apart. They may have 2 qualifying students, and that's okay. So this is what's changed in the last 2 years. So you still may get people that come in that say, well, in years past, I think I got more credit, or maybe now I'm getting more credit. Well, it's because the credit's changed, okay? It is now, when you're thinking about that whole refundable versus non-refundable, it's a mix of the two. Whereas in the past, it was just non-refundable. But now there's two, possibly, sometimes can be two parts. So it is a little more tedious than it used to be. The credit equals 100% of the first 2,000 and 25% of the next 2,000. So, 100% of the first 2,000 you can possibly get, and 25% of the next two, giving a maximum credit of 2,500. Now, who this benefits, and I just know because I did some for real this year, is those that don't pay as much. Because in the past, when it was just a percentage, well, you got more the more you paid, right? So I think I told y'all this example early on. I had a long-time client who she forgot that 1098. I said, well, get it. You never know. Well, I forgot the new numbers on it. I said, well, they changed that credit last year, so let's get it because it may not be what I think it used to be. It might be a little more for you. And it was, because they do that 100% of the first 2,000. So it actually helped her, even though they only had like $300 or $400 qualifying dollars, they got all that. Versus in the past, it would have been like 50 to 100. It wouldn't have been that much.
Okay, so now what kind of expenses are they talking about here?
We'll show you. We'll show you.
And all
Yep.
that kind of stuff?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll show you. And if I don't have the specifics in here, I'll print it out for you. Okay?
Because
Yep.
I just
Nope.
know that there's a lot of them around
Nope.
here with a college town. You know?
Correct. Correct. So we're going to talk about the amount of the credit first. So as you've seen, as we've talked about some other things, sometimes there's income limitations. This is one of those. So your MAGI, which is modified, we technically don't really have modified AGI anymore on the 1040, so I don't know why they're still using MAGI. It doesn't even show up on there on the 1040. We haven't seen it. But it's between 80 and 90,000, and that's going to be single. 160 to 180 if married, filing joint. Okay? And I want to say on the income, normally, if you're HOH, because you're by yourself, you're usually with that single rate as well. They don't bump you up to the joint amount. Okay? Now, if there's something in between, I'll try to find out for you. They didn't put that in there if there was a difference there. These amounts used to be a lot lower. They used to be closer to, I think that's another thing they changed in the tax credits 2 years ago, is like married filing joint, so this is 180, okay?
They both have to be in school? I guess they do, don't they?
Just one.
Just one?
Just one person.
Okay.
As long as the one is in school, that's fine. Now, to claim the credit, yes, you have to have the eligible student.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for your student, not for yourself. Or is it for both?
Any. Can be any.
It can be either
Yep,
one.
can be anyone.
Yourself
Yep.
Or student.
Yep. Okay, so the AGI, like I said, it's pretty high. Okay, I don't usually have any clients that hit that mark of the 160,000 to 180. So this office, normally if they say somebody's in school, we want them to get that form. Okay, and I kind of do this in a funky order. I would have showed the form first,
That's 1098.
but it is the 1098T. It's a few pages back. And I like to hold it up to the camera just so if y'all ever watch this replay. If you'll look at that 1098, if you want to flip to it. Okay, so of course, like everything else we've had, you've got your student's identification number, you'll have the university's information. Okay, 1 and 2, you're going to have payments received for tuition. So that's talking about that 1 and 2 is your eligible tuition. Okay, that's in there. Now, most legitimate places that you're qualified to get these from should get these for you. Okay? I'll have to look through here again. I don't recall how much detail's in here. If there's things I think of that they left out, I'll be sure to print them. Like I was saying, I already know we need to print the lifetime learner stuff. But every now and then I notice they'll leave out some details. So if they left some stuff out, I'll either have you write it down or I'll print you out a sheet that says
They
that
have to
on
go to
there.
the registrar's office though, right? Or someplace on the campus? This is
So-
No, they automatically do these.
Oh,
Yes.
And we mail them out by the.
It's our JBU official here. She sees
Yes.
them in the mail. Now,
Yes.
what can happen with these is sometimes they don't get to the parent. Sometimes it gets put in the student's mailbox or sent to their email. Some do it electronically now. Most places, though, you can get these electronically. If you just
Yeah.
call them and say, hey, I need that 1098T. Can you email it to me? Can you fax it to me? There's 50 different ways for them to get this out to somebody. But usually what I find is the kids get it and don't get it to their parents. And the parents come in here and they always forget it.
Yeah.
Parents never remember this form. They just don't. Because usually the kids they're living on campus. So they just forget, or, they may have brought it to them at some other time and they forgot it or whatever. But that's what that looks like there. Now, something I want to draw attention to. Box 5 says scholarships or grants. When we calculate those in the software, when the software calculates it, it is a combination. So you don't get the full credit if you also get scholarships.
Yeah, because
It's free money, right?
Basically.
It's only going to give you credit for what you paid out of pocket.
Right.
Okay? So if you get one of these right away, if you notice there's scholarships, it's going to be limited. But yet again, because they're giving you that first so much 100%,
Right.
that's why it's more than it used to be, even if you have scholarships.
Some scholarships could wipe out the free money, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. The one thing I want to tell you that's a little more difficult on these credits, see where that says in box 4, adjustments made for a prior year? In years past, those were very hard to calculate. So we'll have to see with the new software if it changes the way we calculate them. In years past, sometimes if they had that, we used to have to do some overwriting and go get prior year returns. It was a whole thing. It was like a whole spiel to do it. Okay?
So basically, if there's an amount there, we need to get help.
Yes.
Okay, ask for help on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the main reason being, if it says an adjustment for a prior year, that may mean some of this should be on another tax return.
Yeah.
Or we're compensating for it on this one, so we have to have that other information from that other tax year. Okay? I would say the softwares 2 to 3 years ago was easier. The last 2 years, I don't even think we ever figured it out. I think we had a couple of them that it was so close they weren't going to get much back, and they left it off because they're like, let's not even apply for that credit. Let's leave it off. That sounds complicated. I know that adjustment's going to be a big old deal. And what's going to happen if they leave it off and the IRS eventually finds it? They're going to send them their own adjustment. No harm, no foul. If that ever happens, and they're like, well, it's not going to get me much. If it's too complicated, just leave it off. We always want to make a note on the packet. This is what we did. Customer requested this. Due to paperwork constraints, they didn't want to fool with it. Professionally write that in. But, you want to make sure you document in CYA if they say, oh, I don't want to mess with that. Well, we may need to research it because they may adjust it. Oh, it's no big deal. No big deal now unless they're sending you a $700 bill from the year before that we didn't know about, right? That's why you want to CYA, because then we could go back and say, well, we have a note here that we told you we couldn't calculate that because you didn't have your prior year information, so you want to leave the form off, okay?
A note which they signed.
Correct.
Or initial.
Yeah. So we initial it and we put that on the back of the packet and say, well, there was adjustment for a prior year. They didn't want to fool with it. They'd rather just let the IRS eventually mess with that. We want to make sure we document it because it may not be y'all that are here when they come back in or call up, and that way we can look at it. Let's see. They're going to show you the academic period that they were there. We want to make sure it's at least half-time student. Check if graduate student, and then I've never had anything in box 10. If anything ever were to come in and you weren't sure, obviously you always want to reach out. Okay? So I'm changing up the little order they did everything, but that's okay. Okay. American Opportunity Credit as of 18, so we're looking at this big one now. As of 18, student had not completed 4 years of post-secondary, so that's what they call that. Post-secondary is, freshman through senior year in college. So student had not completed those first 4 years. That's who's able to use this credit. Do not count academic credit awarded solely because of performance on proficiency exams. I have no idea what that's talking about. Never heard that sentence ever.
Make sure they're not getting that. I think.
I believe that's talking about
students can test.
clip out. Yeah,
clip out is the term they use.
So it's talking about if they took classes in high school, that doesn't count. We're talking about the 4 years of college.
Or if they go in and take a test and they score high enough,
They don't have to take a class for that
classes.
semester,
So,
right? And that's
anyway,
always going to be marked here.
Yeah.
You always want to make sure it says check if at least part-time, because that's what we
Yeah.
have to go off of, is what's on that 1098.
I know a couple of graduating high school students though that had 30 hours of college credit. when
That
they
is
graduated.
crazy.
And can they claim that? They can't claim that, can
No.
No,
they? Okay.
no, this is paid
They
for,
were in
you've been in school,
I
you've
see.
you've
You
went,
paid for it,
there's another page in a minute that talks about that.
okay.
All right. Student has not been convicted of a felony. Okay. There is a question on there that will say, have you committed a felony? We would have to answer that. Was enrolled in a program leading to a degree, certificate, or recognized education credential. That's kind of like we're talking about. If you're your freshman or you're in your senior year of high school, you're not leading to a degree or certificate yet. You're just taking little classes to get a jump start, right? That you've got to be in that first year. But like I said, guys, that's where this comes in handy. We're going off this, okay? You got to get this, because this is from the institution. They actually have made it where we're not supposed to calculate this credit without it. Okay? Because basically all the information's on there anyway, so I never did it without it anyway. But legally, this is almost looked at as much as that EIC now. We have to have this. This is that AOTC. It's going to be on all that document pages I told you that's got all the check marks, yeses or nos. Did you get your form? All that good stuff. It's all on it. So we got to have the 1098.
Or
Okay?
they used the wrong grammar on this. Neither the American Opportunity Credit, and it should say nor the whole.
Nor, yep. It should. We didn't write it, did we?
No,
We
we
would have done
didn't.
better. We would have done better. Okay. Let's see. So 77, sheet 77 shows you some more information here. If taxpayer is under age 24 and the following conditions apply, you cannot claim the refundable part of the credit. Okay? Now, your allowed credit is the non-refundable part only. The reason that they split them as well is in the past, you were disallowed from the whole credit if you met any of these criteria. You didn't get a credit at all. Or they would audit you and it was a process and you had to fight for your own credit. You'll see why when we look at the information. Okay? You do not qualify for the refundable portion if, number one, you are under age 18. Number two, age 18 at the end of age 18 at the end of 2018, and your earned income was less than one half of your support, or you were a full-time student between those two ages, and your earned income was less than one half of their support. Okay? At least one of your parents was alive, or someone is not filing a joint return.
Those are things that you don't get back.
Correct. You don't get that refundable portion. You can still get some of it to go against your tax liability. For the non-refundable part, you don't get the refundable. The biggest one people are running into on this is more geared towards 18 to 24-year-olds that have moved out of the house. Okay? If your parents are still alive, you may not get that refundable portion. So we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds that are on their own. They're not married. They're single. They may have children, okay, but they are going to school. You may not get the refundable portion.
So normally, to get any of this back,
Normally, you're on your parents' return.
the parents are not alive.
In
Right.
order to get it,
The refundable portion.
yeah.
Oh, just the
Actually,
refundable.
This is just the refundable portion. They've changed it. Used to any of this, you couldn't even get it yourself at all. If your parents weren't claiming it on you and you've moved out and you're raising, you've become an adult and you're not going to still be on their taxes, you couldn't get this at all, any of the credit. So what they're saying is you just can't get the refundable portion.
Okay.
But they will give you some tax
Yes.
credit.
Now,
some of it.
am I saying that the software and the IRS has caught up with the new rules? I can't tell you. I haven't had anybody that's fit this bill lately, but I know in the past, before they updated this, 2 or 3 people I knew that met this criteria of not being able to get the credit, they were audited They were questioned.
Unless some people have had some counseling, about 3% is all going to know about this anyway.
That's correct. That's true. But a lot of them, like I said, some of them that come in, well, and to that point, who I saw that had claimed it was 20, 21, 22-year-olds that did it on Turbo. They're like, oh, I'm in school. I'm going to get this credit, right? That's the ones that came back and said, oh, I did TurboTax and it's auditing me on my so-and-so credit. Well, how old are you? Did you do it on your own? Did we do it? Well, I can help you, but I'm going to charge you to help you because now we're talking about some sort of either amendment or me calling the IRS or me figuring out your situation. I'm not going to do that for free. Y'all will learn more about that when we do you were asking me earlier about the corporate side.
Mm-hmm.
The corporate in-office training, that's usually in January. So that's right before we get going. The 2 weeks computer training is computers. And then in January, we do like a 2-day or a full day of like corporate in-office, walk you through, show you how we do stuff in here. Not here, but in here. More of the computer training, depending on if they change it up on me. You know, I told you they were doing the trainer. So watch, I'll tell you how I've done it for 8 years and I'll completely change it up. But normally the trainer type training and training you guys on computer is just from the time you get, you know, it's just handing you a practice problem and you're just data entering. You're practicing the software only. You're not practicing the customer service portion and you're not practicing what happens after you finish the return. So the corporate P&P, policy procedure, that's more of what happens from here to here and from here to in the back. When we send returns, process returns, filing, that sort of office procedures, you know, dress code, those sorts of things. That's more of the computer training policy procedure in January. There's also some, after you pass that competency exam, some of those things will automatically be issued to you. So one of them is like a computer spyware, knowing not to click on bad things on the computer. That will automatically come to your little portal in topics.
Authorization too, right?
Yes, all that will come to topics. So you will see some, once y'all pass it that first week of December, you'll see some other things get issued to you, and that's okay. You will take those too. Now, I did ask, I said, okay, if corporate's doing this different this year, does everybody have to have their competency done before you want us putting them on for the computer modules? And they said no, that it should be like always. You can kind of be doing that as you're doing the computer. If you take the test a few times and you're having trouble, can I let them go ahead and start practice problems? You know, they didn't have a problem with that as of yesterday. So if that changes, I'll let you know. Because what would happen is, especially with a pretty good sized group, everybody would be in different places. I'd have, you know, you may be done with your competency and want to move on to do practice, but Frank's still trying to pass the competency. So if they've changed it to where, no, we'd rather you pass all your computer stuff first on the training side for topics, we may not move you into the new Fusion. It's called Fusion, by the way. I don't like the name, but they didn't ask me. It's called Fusion.
Gatorade makes that.
Yeah, that's the new, yeah, we're going to need Gatorade.
Yeah.
That's the new software's name is Fusion. I hate it. That's the only thing, I think, one of the things I hadn't liked. And I'm like, why didn't you name it something? I don't know. Because our old version was called LibTax. LibTax. It was like a little cute, cool name, you know. Our new support tool we have is called Libby. Like, you know, like you have Siri on your phone and stuff. You can say, hey, Siri, or hey, Google. Well, our new support tool is called Libby. So that's super cute. And then somebody coming up with the word fusion. But, you know, I think probably because it's a fusion of, you know, Drake and what we had before. We're fusing it all together. I get it. But that's the new name of the software is Fusion. So before you go to Fusion training for these 3 or 4 weeks of that stuff, and that doesn't end, okay? Those 2 weeks is just that first window, just to kind of get people introduced. We'll want you to do so many even before the end of January. So that's not the be-all, end-all 2 week, that's it. That's just those first 2 weeks to get you going, introduce you to it, let you get your feet wet, and then you'll have so many we'll want you to do by, you know, sometime in January.
Is that all done in here?
No. So the only thing that will be done in person is that corporate policy procedure, walking you through office procedures.
Okay.
The
Everything else will still be
Yes,
on
because
Hub.
because that's in the hub. I can see your practice problems and I can see that you've done them.
Oh, okay.
So I can literally go in and see everything.
Okay.
So that's the good thing about the new versions of everything is it's all on computer. So I can go in and see how many practice problems you've done. I can see how many of you've done. And the good thing about it is I can look at everybody overall and say, okay, are some people really getting it and they're working ahead and they're almost done? Is there some people we need to get in and get some more done? Like I said, I don't usually open up the office for practice problems per se. Used to, we had to because it wasn't in cloud. So you had to come here, we had to be together, everybody had their own computer, that sort of thing. But, you know, the other good thing about doing it on your own is you're on your own and you can do it at your own pace. If it's taking you a little longer to put in stuff, you know, that's okay. But we try to work towards a goal of 30 to 45 minutes for an average return. Will some of them take longer? Yes. Especially our old Phoenix software, I think the new software may be quicker. From what the little bits I've seen of it, I think it's going to be quicker. So we'll hope for that. A scholarship received by a full-time student is not considered support. Okay? They're just telling you scholarship's not going to be taxed if they've got a 1098. Now, if they were to have excessive scholarships, that's another thing that can happen on that 1098T. If that scholarship box outweighs the tuition and there's an overage, the software will want you to tax them on it. So it'll have you carry it to somewhere else in the computer, and they're going to be taxed on it. There's another time where the client may go, oh, wait a minute, what? Legally, we're supposed to put that in there because they're supposed to be taxed on it. If they opt to not put it in there, we can say, okay, but what could happen if the IRS finds it? They're going to send them a bill.
Yep.
So, you know, I've had that
I'm
happen.
used to that.
Yeah.
Just send me a bill.
Just bill me.
Just bill me because we're not going to pay it anyway.
Just bill me. Just bill me.
We're going to fix it.
You were asking me, I'm going to write it on the front of my thing here so I don't forget. Because there was a page and it just didn't print in my stuff that I had earmarked to print. The eligible expenses, you were asking me on that?
Yes.
So it's going to be tuition that's on that 1098. Then there is going to be,
Housing.
yes, there will be other things that is, it didn't print. Housing and meals I think are excluded. So this is going to be more of materials. So laptops, books, pens, pencils. Usually your housing is not included, so it's just tuition. So when you're thinking about living on campus, just tuition. Okay? Fees. Fees, yes.
All kinds of fees.
Yes,
you have to pay.
fees as long as they are through the university.
And supplies that you might have.
Supplies, yes. Now, back in the day, you couldn't get them off campus. So anything you were going to put and list, because everything may not be on that tuition statement. That may just be tuition. But you know on your own you went and spent $500 at the college bookstore, right? Back in the day, you could only do it through a college organization to buy those things. Now it can be from anywhere. Now, the question is, do you have to have the receipts? Usually, in our realm, as long as they have the 1098, there's other sections that ask us, do you have other expenses, right? And it'll list them too, so you don't have to have it memorized. It'll say, other expenses including this. In the past, we've let people just kind of tell us, and we document it on the packet. They included this and this and this. It wasn't on their 1098. If they are audited, the IRS may want to see that. They may want to see it. Right. And that's what we tell people. We can put it in there, but if the IRS ever asks, you may have to provide that documentation. Because most people don't have it on them because the kid's not with them.
Right.
You know, they're not with them, and the kid may use their debit card and the receipts at the bookstore. So that's the reason we kind of have to be a little flexible. But I would make sure and document it on the packet. They don't have the receipt, but these are the items we added. Boom, boom, boom. You know, back in the packet's a good place to put those kinds of things. Especially if they don't bring in a sheet or anything with things written down, it's a good place to put it. So, packet is a very good wealth of information. But, so we need lifetime learner page, and we need a qualified expense page for you guys that I need to bring in, so you have that. Okay. And as I'm looking, guys, when I go back through, if I think of anything else on the American Opportunity Credit that's super pertinent that you need to have, I'll print it out. Now let's look at the example so you kind of see. That's our example. So you kind of see how that is worded. And similarly on your competency exam and on your quizzes, it'll be worded this way. Elaine Burns filed head of household. Her AGI was AGI on Form 1040 was 49,000. Okay, so she fits that bill. She's below that income amount, so she qualifies. Okay, her tax liability is 3,451. Now, why in the practice scenario would they tell you her tax liability? Why would they tell you the tax? It's just all on this page.
Okay, so it's all on the page.
It's all on this page. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just reading. You can read along with me though, so you
Okay,
can see
I
that.
got you.
Yeah. It puts the calculations on there, so if you want to read with me, you can. Why would it tell us her tax liability in a scenario? Why do we need to know what she may owe for the year? Why is that important?
I guess you're gonna take a percentage of it to do something. That's pretty
Okay.
broad statement.
Because you need to know how much she paid in.
Okay. Okay. Where is the non-refundable portion of the American Opportunity Credit going towards? Your tax liability.
Tax liability, so that gets her 2,000,
Or
but she doesn't get.
We don't know yet because we haven't got that far. But that's why they're telling us, okay, that tax liability, that's that amount that any credit you get goes towards. That tax liability, line 11. That may change by January, but as of right now, line 11, that tax liability, I definitely, if I was you, would go watch the videos from last night. Don't do them yet because I'm going to add that other one. I'm in the green outfit. There's 3 videos. I'm in the green. We go in depth really big on that tax liability.
okay.